Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Athlete to Athlete podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. It's been in the works for a minute, had some issues trying to schedule things, but here we are. We are going to be chatting with Grace Stark, and she is a professional hurdler for Adidas. She became an Olympian this past summer at the Paris Olympics, where she ended up placing fifth overall in the 100-meter hurdles. And Pepper is going to be joining us, if you can see on video. I'm babysitting Charles' cat. Anyways, she placed fifth, guys, at her first Olympics ever. That's pretty insane. But yeah, she attended the University of Florida while she was in the NCAA, and she's actually a Michigan-made athlete. So she is from Michigan like me. She has been a big name back home ever since I was in high school, and I'm really excited that I get the opportunity to chat with her today. And with you guys, we're going to learn a little bit more about her and her experience through all of her track career for real, but also touching on her time in the Olympics. And I'm super excited. So stay tuned. Okay, Grace, thank you so much for joining us. Could you give us a brief run through of your timeline in sport and specifically in track, kind of leading up to where you're at now?
Yeah, so I've been doing track for like 10 years. I did gymnastics and various other sports, but I love gymnastics. My mom pulled me out and she was like, I think you should do track. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but once I did it, I never stopped doing it. So I did like all the AAU stuff throughout middle school and high school, and then committed to Florida for college and spent 5 years there. And then now I'm a pro athlete for Adidas.
Awesome. What kind of athlete kind of would you say you are as far as like race day? Are you kind of a more anxious athlete? Or are you like a pretty like confident all around? How would you say?
I would say I'm pretty anxious. I mean, it's meet day. I always just like, I feel like I'm always nervous for me. I'm always super excited as well. But I feel like if I wasn't nervous and I wouldn't care enough. So I'm not like, I'm confident going into races, but I'm also nervous because, anything can happen. I have 10 barriers or 5 barriers in my way. So anything can really happen. But yeah, I'm pretty anxious, but I stick to a schedule. And then once I know I get through like my schedule, my warm up, and my pre meet, then I feel pretty confident by the time I get to the start line.
What does your training schedule look like now as a pro? And then also, how often are you traveling? Seems like you're traveling pretty often here in season.
Yeah, it's a little different than college. I mean, we started our training a little later, plus my season ended in September, and that's when people are getting back into fall training, but I'm still competing. So it was a little different than what I've been used to, but it's still very fun. My training has been a little different this year. We've definitely upped the endurance, which is a good thing because I don't have a ton of endurance, and it was a bit of a struggle, but we're obviously working through it. And then my meets also started like a little later. Usually I start in the beginning of January, but because of the pro schedule, I started in February. I was at Boston last week, and then I came back for like 2 or 3 days to Gainesville, which is where I train. And then now I'm in New York, and I competed at Millrose yesterday. And then I'll head to France tomorrow, and then I'll come back, and then I'll go for a few days. I'll be in Gainesville for maybe a week, and then I am back in Staten Island for USA's.
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
It's very all over the place.
Very busy, but it's fun. It's definitely really fun.
Yeah. So training when you're traveling this often, do you have kind of like, is your coach traveling with you? Are you training like at these facilities before like leading up to competition? What does training look like while you're
Yeah, so we get in a couple days early, and we have like a shakeout, and then we have a pre-meet, and then we get to race day. That's pretty much what it is going to every meet. We kind of get there 2 to 3 days early. With going overseas, we kind of get there a little earlier than normal versus like when you're like traveling within the country. But yeah, like practice days are kind of limited in Gainesville just because we're traveling so much. And we traveled Sunday, we did a light jog on like Monday last week or whatever, and then we had 2 days to kind of like get a quick shakeout and then one good practice, and then we're back out again. So it is a little different, not as much training as you would think, but it's still really good training that we do get in.
backtracking a little bit? I meant to ask, have you kind of always been in the 100 hurdles or 60 hurdles space, or when did you get into the hurdles specifically?
Yeah, for the most part, I think I did sprints a little bit. I mean, I've always been a sprinter and I love sprinting, and I still think I am a sprinter, but now I just sprinting and hurdles very similar, but I kind of went in the sprints, and then one day they were just like in middle school, hey, we need someone to run the hurdles. My name was on the board with all the events that we were doing, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. I was doing well. I mean, I was like 13, so I didn't really know kind of what well really meant, but I just kind of continued with it. And I love hurdles. I love sprinting as well. I don't sprint as much as I used to. I sprinted in college, so I ran the 60 in college, the 100 here and there, and then I was on the 4x1. But yeah, I love the hurdles. For the most part, I've stuck with the hurdles, and that's always been the better of the two.
Does your mental preparation look like going into like these bigger competitions now?
Mhm.
And also, I guess while you were in the NCAA, but
Yeah, I just try to stay focused on myself and stick to a routine. Coach Holloway always says like you can only focus on you and your lane and your hurdles. So it's obviously there's so many great athletes on the line next to me, and it'd be hard not to focus on them, but I really try and stay focused on myself. And those races with all like last yesterday, there were like I think five of the top like six in the world. So it was just a super stacked race. And in those moments, you just have to stay focused on yourself, no matter how good the competition is.
yeah, sure. Going back a little bit, um,
Hmm.
you've had a couple different significant injuries in your career.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
had a torn hamstring your senior year of high school, correct?
Hmm.
And then in 2022, a tibial plateau fracture and torn
Hmm.
meniscus.
Hmm.
And that was at like the SEC championship. So what did
Hmm.
recovery look like for both of these injuries timeline wise?
Yeah, so I tore my hamstring, I think that January of 2019. So I was out pretty much that whole high school indoor season, which had really sucked 'cause I had just came off of a really good junior year. So I just wanted to keep building, and I'm kind of like shut down. So that kind of wasn't the best. And then I'm talking to my Florida coaches, talking to my high school coaches, talking to my club coaches. What do we want me to do? And me, I really want to win another state championship in the hurdles. So they're like, oh, you can just, you have your scholarship, everything you sign, everything's kind of said and done. You could just not, compete. And I was like, that's just like not me to not compete. So I'm just gonna go through rehab. And this is when I really found a love for like rehab and physical therapy, because I mean, people in physical therapy, they do so much. They like definitely changed my career and stuff like that. So just worked with them, worked really hard, and I was able to win the state championship. And I decided not to do the any of the national championships that year. I just decided I knew I wasn't fully healthy, but I knew I was healthy enough to like get things done. I just didn't I was still obviously in pain, and I didn't want to continue that and get hurt even worse just to win like a national title or compete for one. Um, but yeah, that was my senior year. I had a bit of an injury my sophomore year in at Florida. I tore the other hamstring. So that was a bit rough. That one didn't last as long. It was earlier, so I didn't miss as much, but I wasn't able to have the indoor season I wanted because I had a successful freshman year. So I was hoping to, again, build off that for the next indoor season and outdoor season. It didn't necessarily go the way I wanted. I still had some success, and I was happy with a lot of the results that I had. But again, missing most of the indoor season and not placing as well as I wanted to definitely was unfortunate. Um, and then in 22, it just kind of I felt like I was on a high again. I had just tied the collegiate record and won nationals, and I had ran really well in the 60. So I had big PRs and a lot of success there. And then I get to the outdoor SECs. Of course, there's a lot of pressure just because it's SECs. I had just won indoor, and obviously I want to do great. And there's so many amazing girls on the line and stuff like that. So again, those kind of feels like one of those moments where I wasn't completely focused on myself, and I think I was at like the sixth or seventh hurdle, and I was just all of a sudden on the ground. I don't really know kind of like what happened. I think I may have hit a few hurdles. I really don't know. I thought I was at the third hurdle, and then I watched the race back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was further in the race than I thought. I kind of just feel like I like I don't know, like blacked out in the middle of the race, but all of a sudden I'm like on the ground. I'm like, I just don't think I can walk. I really didn't want it to be my ACL. Like that was like the biggest to me knee injury. And I was just like, I don't want that, but I can't walk. I'm trying to get off the track. My trainers are trying to find me. And then we go back and do some ACL testing. And they're like, it's not your ACL. We just think you may have popped your like patella out of place or something. And I was like, okay, but like I can't walk. So we have to, I don't know. So then we come back, and I like travel with the team back. We it was a rough travel because I'm in a lot of pain. I can't really move my leg. I can't really like function too much. I'm getting a lot of help from my teammates, which I was grateful for, but I don't like the feeling of being like helpless.
Yeah.
And then we get back and they do treatment on it, and I have a high pain tolerance, so they were doing like a lot of soft tissue and stuff like that. And yeah, it was painful, but I could handle it. And then we get the x-ray that Monday, and it's like I remember the doctor just being like, "What happened to her? Like she felt she was running doing this. Like it's a an accident that's really common in car accidents when someone like rear ends because of how much like pressure and force it causes the tibia to like split, which is what my tibia did. So yeah, they were just like, this is like a really strange like track injury. But yeah, they told me I had to get surgery. And once they said that, I just like didn't listen to the rest of the conversation. I told my trainer to go get Coach Holloway. I called my parents and I was like, look, I really don't know what's going to happen. I'm out for 8 months probably. And it was a rough injury. I had to get surgery. I actually ended up getting two surgeries. So the first one was to get all the metal and stuff put in there. So it was like, I think it was a plate and like 6 or 7 screws that were put in. And then like a year and a half later, before last season, I ended up getting it all removed except for one. But it was a rough process for sure.
Yeah. So, what did that look like mentally after
Mhm.
that injury? Because I mean, like you said, you were coming off of a national title
Mhm.
or the indoor, yeah, indoor national
Mhm.
title. Obviously you had big goals for outdoor, I'm sure. So, what were you thinking mentally at that point for like next year?
Yeah, I feel like when it happened, I was just like kind of stuck and there were like no emotions. I was obviously upset, but I just like didn't really know what my future looked like because they're telling me it's a career-ending injury. So they're telling me like, oh, you're not going to come back from this. Like most people in any sport don't come back, let alone one like yours. So I was just like, okay, I just like didn't really know what to do, but I had a lot of great people in my corner, my trainers, my family, my coaches, my teammates. They definitely were all there for me every step of the way. And they definitely didn't let me get into like that depressive state that I probably would have gone if they weren't there. I was super upset, but they were always like showing up in my apartment, taking me out, making sure I did things, helping me out with things that I needed, not letting me not go to rehab, making sure that I went to rehab, making sure that by the time I could walk that I wasn't limping, or always encouraging me to like, this is not a career ending injury for you. And I'm like, okay, but the doctor is telling me it is. And
Mhm.
you I don't know. Like, what do you know? Like, this
Right.
is a doctor telling me who did the surgery. That's career ending. But I have all these great people around me being like, who cares what the doctor says? We know you. It's not going to be a career ending injury. So it took a lot of time to actually like believe that it wasn't going to be a career ending injury because there were a lot of like hiccups along the way. And even getting back to running, it just felt like every time I saw the doctor and saw my PTs and got testing done, it's like, oh, we need 6 more weeks before you can go outside, or 6 more weeks before you can do this, which is tough to hear every 6 weeks that you need 6 more weeks. It's like, it seems like time's running out. Um, but with my coaches and trainers, we definitely figured everything out. And we got me back that, what the year is it? 23. So I ended up competing at the SEC championships in the hurdles. I didn't make the final, I didn't make nationals. Um, but I did better than I thought. And it was definitely something that I needed to do. I was really upset at the meet because I just didn't like how my 60 went. And then I was like, okay, like I have no confidence left to just get in these hurdles. And they gave me a choice and I ended up choosing to do it. And I was glad I did because I knew if I couldn't go over 5 hurdles and outdoor going over 10 would be really rough, considering like I knew that I fell in the latter half of the race. So I knew going over that seventh hurdle was gonna be tough. And even in my races, that outdoor season, it showed like every time I kind of got to the seventh hurdle, there would be a little bit of hesitation. But it took a long time to like finally get over that. And I did well the outdoor season. Yeah, going into this last year, the collegiate season 24, we kind of just like really focused in. We got the surgery and I felt a lot better getting so I had an internship and I met someone who had the same type of surgery with as me, and she had the same type of break and stuff like that. So she got all the metal removed and she came back and told me about it. And she was like, you need to get it done, like schedule it as quick as possible. It definitely changed things. Like all the pain that you have like isn't really going to be there. And she was definitely right. I was like nervous to get the surgery because I already got a surgery and I didn't know like how that was going to turn out. And then to get another, and I was like, okay, well, that one was keeping my leg kind of like together, and this one's going to be taking that apart. Like, I don't know how that's going to go, but ended up working out for the best. And we worked really hard last year with PTs and everybody again. Yeah, and it was a success.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to come back, and especially after being told that you wouldn't and having good people
Mhm.
after that. That's amazing. Do you still kind of, I guess, because of that, you said that you found like a love for like rehab and all and like physical therapy. Do you kind of continue doing like prehab, I guess people call it, like just like consistently
Oh
while
yeah, I still work with my PTs now. I see them once a week when I am in town. Just to there was like when I got my second surgery, there was a lot of scar tissue and they had to like carve it out so they could get the plate out. So we definitely still work on things like my quad muscle and stuff because that was like kind of like depleted after I couldn't walk for like 6 or 8 weeks. So we definitely still work on small little things.
what did you study again? Or I don't think I need.
Health education and behavior. So I did want to go into PT once I first tore my hamstring because I was like, I have family who's our PTs and in the medical field, and then I really like how they could get me from something like a hamstring injury and then just like back to normal. And then even like this second round of going through PT in the way that I did, like just kind of got me through there. And then even with my internship, it was I was like an exercise specialist intern. So it was similar to being like a PT, but it was like not covered by like health insurance. So I would work with people who needed help with PT, and then I'd work with people who just wanted to exercise and, build muscular endurance because some of them were like 100. So it was like 18 to 100 years old. So even in that setting, it made me like it a lot more because I, of course, wanted to work with sports. I'm an athlete. Of course, I just kind of want to stay connected to that. But with that internship, it was like, okay, I can work with any age. And it's also cool to see those mini milestones to them because I thought I would just want to see like a bad injury to go and get somebody back out on the track, not even just getting someone to like walk up the stairs again.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm exercise science, so kind of like
Okay.
similar stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had like a smaller internship working with people that were basically kind of like personal training, but people that were not at all in like the athletic space and like
Mm-hmm.
like just meeting people where they're at. I think that's interesting.
Right.
Just different levels of athleticism, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I have a cat trying to get in, so if you can hear like a cat
Oh
crying.
no, it's okay.
Okay. Cool. Then obviously your senior season, you did amazing. You
Thank
were
you.
run indoor for the 60 hurdles and then
Mm-hmm.
national champ in the 100-meter hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, reflecting on your NCAA career and all the challenges you faced, which you ultimately persevered from, um, how did it feel to receive that national championship outdoor title as kind of like the cherry on top or like the pinnacle, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like one of the one things I was like kind of missing in my collegiate career. That was like the one thing that I felt like I was chasing after. I mean, even that season was the entire year was still a bit like rough. I mean, again, I had another surgery, so I didn't really know kind of what was going to happen. And we were working really hard to make great things happen. And I feel like when I won the indoor SEC championships, I kind of felt like I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And then I lost indoor, so I was devastated. But she was a great athlete. It was a great race. But it still like kind of lit a fire in me because I was still like, okay, not like I had the indoor one already. Like I still can get that outdoor and, kind of complete what I wanted to complete. So I really worked hard outdoor and I just really wanted that national title. And I just wanted to make a statement that I for sure was back. And there was just like no doubt that the injury, it was kind of like for myself, like this injury wasn't gonna like hold whatever it had over me for my entire career. And now like sometimes when you do like two truths and a lie and it's like, oh, I've never broken a bone or something, I still am like, oh yeah, I've never broken a bone. And then I look down, it's like, yeah, I really have broken a bone. Like I kind of just really try and like forget about it. Of course it's always going to stick with me and it's a part of my journey, but I try as much to push it out of my mind as possible. And I feel like that's what really helped this last season.
So then after your national championship. I feel like you
hmm
had a pretty quick turnaround to like signing, and then obviously
hmm
being the pro, you signed with Adidas. So
hmm
what was that process like, kind of acquiring like that professional contract and making that transition?
Yeah, it was an interesting process. It was a fun process. I had a lot of help from the pro athletes around, and obviously Coach Holloway. He definitely got me connected to all of those agents and, guided me to like pick the right one. I have the same agent as Grant Holloway, so that was definitely a big bonus. I mean, it's great. We train together, we travel together, we kind of do most of our stuff together, and this just makes it way easier. But yeah, he gave me a lot of guidance as well on like, okay, this is an agent that you can go with. This is another one. Like this is what I felt with this agent, and I've talked to other people with other agents. And I chose the one that was best for me. And then they got to working on finding me a contract, and I didn't officially. I knew that it was kind of going to be Adidas at trials, but I wasn't like 100% sure. And then um, I was expecting to wear a Florida uniform in the final, but right before the semi, so I didn't even make the final. Coach Holloway introduces me to the Adidas rep, and he was like, "By the way, you're going to be wearing an Adidas uniform in the final tomorrow. Just like letting you know, just like it's all confirmed, everything's done." And I was like, "Okay, but I haven't made it yet. Like I still have the semis to go through." So now I'm like, "Oh my gosh! Like now I really want to wear this like." Adidas uniform in the final, and it was kind of like a secret, and nobody really knew. I mean, I barely knew. So it was really cool because a lot of people like a lot of my friends, nobody really knew. I didn't really tell anyone. And they're just like, I got like a bunch of texts after I made the team, obviously congratulating me, but they were like, but wait, why were you wearing Adidas? And I was like, surprise, like I'm with Adidas. And yeah, it was super fun. It was a fun process, and I'm glad with my choice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I didn't know how obviously that was a very quick turnaround, obviously for you.
hmm
That
Yeah.
so yeah, obviously trials, you became an Olympian this past summer.
hmm
That's so amazing.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
So can you take us through like the Olympic trials leading up to that competition and going through the rounds?
hmm
What was going through your head aside from the signing pro contract and everything that was going on also with that?
Yeah, so going in, I think I was coming in ranked third in the US. So that gave me a little bit of confidence going in. It's like, okay, so I'm already ranked in the top three. And then we go through prelims and I fall to five. It's like, okay, like these girls, they're really showing up at this meet. And of course, I mean, who wouldn't? It's Olympic trials, but I'm just like, okay, I just got to keep riding the high from NCAAs. And then the next round, okay, I'm sitting in fourth. And it's like, okay, I talked to Coach Holloway. We know what we need to do. We always had the mindset of we need to run 12-3 to make this team. We knew it was going to take 12-3. The girls in the US are the best in the world. They're all so great. I think that was like the fastest race ever, like combined. Like if you add up all the times and then you get like the mean, it would be the fastest. I knew, and I think there were like five or six girls who went like 12-3. So again, in a really fast race. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have to run 12-3. And that's what I had been thinking for like the past couple of weeks. And we talked about it at practice. We knew it would take 12-3, like 12-4. We knew it wasn't going to make the team. And I had only run 12:47 at that point. So I'm like, okay, so I got to have a really big day, and which is what ended up happening. But yeah, he just like right, we were warming up as we normally do. We were having just like we were just like treating it as if it was another meet, and then I was gonna make the team. And he's like, all right, like I'll see you when you're an Olympian. And I'm like, okay, like that's a okay. Just like I just like believed him, of course. And I was like, feel like that gave me a lot of confidence because of course I want to do what he says. I want to like become an Olympian. And if he thinks I can be one, then sure I can be one. And I just like kept moving up each day. And then all of a sudden I look up at the board. It was funny because Masai had broken the record. So I had no idea because they're on the board, they're just saying meet record, but second and third place is not showing up. And I can't see because I'm in like lane 8. So I couldn't see like the rest of the race really. So I didn't really know what was going on. And there's like a camera in my face, and I'm like, okay, he's like the girl next to me, like, did she make the team? And I didn't. And I'm like, it felt like I was out there forever just trying to find out if I'm like, even like, what did I run? Like, I have no idea what place I got. If I like, I could have gotten fifth place. Like, I had no idea. And then I saw that I was an Olympian, and I saw the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's just so many great things happening in like one moment. And I just could not believe it. I made my Adidas debut. I'm now an Olympian on my first like world team. I had a huge PR, and then I'm like, oh my God, it was just so overwhelming, and it felt like it all happened in like slow motion.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that I can't imagine how overwhelming that must have been. So many things happening at once.
Hmm.
And did it like finally like set in like, oh my God, like I'm an Olympian, I'm going to Paris. Like,
I feel like it set in when I got to Paris, and I'm like at the Olympic Village, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe I'm at the Olympic Village in Paris. And then it was super cool because so many Florida athletes had made it. So it was like we had our own little like team there. There were so many of us, just even on like the track team, let alone like other teams as well. But I was like roommates with Parker Valby. So, and then I was suite mates with like Anna Hall and Jasmine Moore. And then Mackenzie Long also trains with us now as well. So it just felt like I had like my own little team there. It was so much fun.
yes, I was gonna ask a little bit about like the Olympic Village, and I saw like
Hmm.
people were making TikToks, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many like Florida athletes. It's basically like you guys are just,
Hmm.
I don't know, in the dorms back at
It
school.
felt like we were just like at home at practice again, training with each other, doing what we normally do every day.
That's cool. That must have been like comforting to have
Oh,
that
absolutely. Yeah.
environment. Wow. So in Paris, did you have like your coach with you? Was your family there? Um,
Yeah. So my coach Holly was there. Actually, all if I'm correct, almost all of the Florida coaches were there, which was super nice to have just because like so Coach Nick Peterson, he was the jumps coach and multis coach. So he was already on staff. And then Coach Holloway was there, Coach Melanie Welty was there, Coach Worski and Coach Palmer were all there. So all of the coaches were there. So that was again super comforting. Like if we really needed something, we could call one of them and things would get done. And it was nice because Coach Peterson, being a coach, he would ride the bus with us to the venue when we were on the competing day. So that was nice, like having someone you're so comfortable with and kind of knows like your meet day, like regimen, like he's going to be there with you. But most of my family went, a lot of my extended family went as well because they were like, it's Paris. We got to go. It's the Olympics. It's your first one. And I just like remember talking to like my parents and they're like, okay, like tickets booked, we're all ready. And then I kept on like getting texts, okay, like we'll see you in Paris. I'm just like, what's going on? And I had like probably like 20 family members out there because I had some neighbors and we have like a big group picture and I was so thankful that all of them were able to go. But I had like no idea that they were all gonna go. And then it just like kept on like piling up. And then my mom's just like, oh yeah, by the way, like your aunt just called. She just booked her tickets. And the neighbors called, they just booked their tickets. And I'm just like, this is crazy.
wow. Yeah, that's insane. But you had, I mean, that's a great like support system to have all the
Hmm.
family, friends, teammates, coaches.
Yeah.
That's great. Did you get like the Olympic Village? Did you get to like explore, meet new people, and do fun things? It looked like there were so many cool things that they had like in the village.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of things. I definitely, when I had like a pin trading a little craze for a little bit, I definitely went, sought out some pins, traded a lot. It was super fun. Jasmine Moore was really into it at one point. So I went with her for like one day and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm really getting into it. Like I understand. But yeah, the Olympic Village was so cool, especially when we had like other teammates from Florida with different countries, because we have some Jamaican athletes, some Bahamian athletes, and then some other European athletes. So it was really cool, like being able to like go over there and like see them on the other side of like the village. But yeah, it was such a cool experience. The I didn't go into the cafeteria that much. The food wasn't the best.
Yeah, I heard or remember
It
seeing.
wasn't the best, but Team USA was super nice and they had their own little center with like a practice track and practice facilities and they had like their own chefs that had really American food. So we were able to do that. So that was nice. And that was only like a 20-minute drive. And they had like buses going all day for us. So that was at least nice. But I only went into like I guess the cafeteria, I think once or twice, because I was just like, it's just not for me. But I'm a big coffee person, and they had like these little Costa coffee shops all over. So I would just walk downstairs with one of my teammates and we would get a coffee like every morning and it was free, so it was nice.
So cool.
Hmm.
I didn't know about the separate like American um like dining hall. That's nice.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah,
see
that was really nice.
Yeah, didn't seem like the Olympic Village one was enough based off like the plates that I was looking at. I was like, oh no, oh no.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Also like people are always complaining about like the rooms and like there was no air conditioning or the bed situation. Like how was like the room situation?
Yeah, so I mean, I was with Parker and this rooms were small, so like it was smaller than a hotel room. Which was like fine. At least I wasn't with like a stranger. I was with one of my closest friends. But yeah, they ended up giving us like what are they called? Like bedding pads. I don't know what they're called, but they ended up giving us those and we can get like a firm one if we want it or whatever. So that definitely helped. And then they had like little AC units for us. If not, it would have been hot. And I feel bad for anyone who didn't have those, but it would have been hot.
That yeah, I was so curious about all of that because I saw like
Yeah,
one athlete like said they were sleeping outside. I was like, what
that's
is
crazy. I don't know if it was that would have never been me sleeping
no,
outside.
no.
That would never been me.
Should never get to that point. Oh my God.
Mm-mm.
What did the days leading up to competition look like? I guess how early were you there before you actually ran?
Maybe like a week and a
Okay.
half. Yeah, maybe like a week and a half. Just training as normal. We went to the opening ceremonies, which was super cool, even though it was like wet and rainy and freezing. But it was such a fun experience. And then I saw my family, so we always got to like look around a little bit. And then even after, we went for like a day or two to just like look around Paris, because I mean, it's not every like we were never a big traveling family outside. So it was my first time outside of the US. So we had never been to Europe. So it was like a super cool experience for us. So we definitely took some time to just like go look around Paris and just like enjoy after the competition. But yeah, I mean, we just kind of looked around and we just did some fun things, but we obviously made sure to like stay focused for what we were there for.
Yeah, for sure. So take me through that first race, like in the heats. What was that like?
It was not the best race. I think it was one of my slowest times like all season,
Mm.
but I still placed top three, which means I didn't have to do to this day I still don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's the I
Rep
don't know.
or
Repechage, I don't know.
I
That round.
yes.
I'm glad I didn't have to do that because I got to take that rest day, but I was like beyond nervous. I mean, I think even like Coach Holloway knew because he didn't even like really say anything. He's like, all right, did we get the nerves out? Like I mean, like, yeah, there were like 70, 80,000 people in that stadium. I didn't even hear when they called my name. I just knew to wait because the camera was on me. And I'm like, I can't even hear my own thoughts. It's so loud in here. This is such a huge stadium. And like, I'd only been to the stadium like once before because watched one of my teammates do the triple jump qualifying days. And so I'd only been in there as like a viewer and I was at the very top. I'm like, this stadium's really big and really loud. But being on the track, it's just a crazy experience.
Yeah, I bet. What was that like walking into the stadium like for the first time, like going to set your blocks?
Yeah, I was just like this. Again, that's like really when it really set in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm competing at the Olympics. And I'm just like, this is just crazy. It's like you look around and I had obviously some people have been overseas and then other meets. And once I started to go to overseas meet, it's not like it is in America. We go to meets and we see like nobody in the stands for real.
Yeah.
And then you go overseas and it's like, okay, it's a Thursday night, but there's 40,000 people here. So like that's like normal overseas. And so I'm like, okay, I've been in Hayward, not even filled. And Hayward's like a great stadium. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all these people in Hayward. And this stadium is just like nothing compared. And even like the Diamond League meets are like the same way. They're not as many people, but it's just like crazy how many people were in there to watch.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine all the energy in there. Wow.
It was
Goodness.
so loud.
Yeah. But then like it gets like dead silent when you're like getting in the block.
Yes. It goes from like very, very loud to like very, very quiet. It's like, oh my goodness. Okay, so now I really have to focus. Like there's no more going on. Like I have to just focus.
Oh my gosh. That would be absolutely insane. Wow. So you advanced through the qualifying round. You didn't
Mhm.
have to do the rep whatever, which
Yeah.
is such an interesting add-on to the this year's Olymp or last year.
Very interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out for some people, but it
Yeah.
was very interesting. Definitely gave some people an extra chance who definitely deserved an extra chance, and maybe they just had like a small mess up in the prelim.
Right. Yeah. So that was cool. But then obviously you got through clean just to the semis. So take
Hmm
that race. What was that?
Semis was that was my best race of the rounds. I had won my heat and I had ran 12:3. And like I hadn't ran 12:3 again since the trials, and I only had like two races since then. But it was such like a big, because I went from 12, I think 45 to 12:31 in like a day. So in
Mm,
my mind, I'm like, when am I gonna run 12:3 again? Like that was just a crazy jump that I didn't expect. And it was such a big jump. I'm like, did I just get lucky, or am I like a 12:3 hurdler? So doing that was very validating, and I was very happy with it. But then we get to the finals, and finals it wasn't my best race. It wasn't my cleanest race. But I ended up getting fifth, which of course, who doesn't want a medal at the Olympics? And I was upset, but then I kind of like calmed down. I was like, this is like my first like Olympics, my first team, and everything that I'd gone through in the past 2 years, like even being here and making the final and getting fifth is just all worth it.
yeah. I mean, making the finals your first Olympics is insane. But I know, of course, when you're that close to a medal, I feel like
Hmm
it's so hard
And it
to
was such a close race too.
it was so close. I remember watching it. I was like, I don't even know. Oh my gosh. Look, it's
Yeah.
insane. Um, Approaching that final, would you say you talked a little bit with saying like you and Coach Holloway try to go into it like it's already, I guess, gonna go in your favor and approaching races that way. Would you say like you kind of tried to go into this race with the same mentality, or I don't know, was it like any different because of how like big of a race this was? What was that like?
Yeah. No, we went in with the same mentality for sure. We try not to change things. We try to treat each race as it is, and bring the same level of intensity to like the smallest race of the year and the biggest. Just trying to stay consistent. Sometimes it goes my way, sometimes it didn't. It didn't completely go my way that time. I didn't say it didn't go my way either. So I was still like, I mean, I'm at the Olympics. There was at that point, like I didn't completely fulfill my dream, but of course, I mean, as like as being an athlete as a young kid, like your dream is to go to like the Olympics. So I knew that I fulfilled that dream, and now it's just like going to keep building off and try and get a medal next time.
So like coming how you said like you were frustrated for a little bit, but then was like, okay, I'm at the Olympics. How
Hmm
long did like kind of that like one where you just like, okay, this is what this is.
Um, Probably like a couple days later, maybe like moments later. It really like it was kind of like oh my gosh, I made the Olympic final and I placed fifth, and oh my gosh, like that was so cool. And then it's like, but I was so close to a medal. So I kind of went like back and forth. I mean, in the moment I was like definitely really upset in the moment. Um and like Coach Holloway knew I was upset, but we kind of just had normal conversations after, and he was super happy for me and stuff after. So and I think he was really proud of me too. So I guess like that also helps too. It's not like he's not one to just like get angry at you for like competing bad, but obviously you want to make your coach proud because he's got you to this point and you've worked so hard together to get to this point. So it was glad that I was glad I still was able to make him proud and stuff like that too.
Yeah, that's great. I it sounds like you guys have like a really good like relationship and close relationship.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, but yeah, I mean that makes sense. Obviously, the frustration because you're a competitor and
hmm
all that, but I'm glad that you were able to just be like, okay, fifth
hmm
first Olympics, that's awesome. And having your eyes set on like that next
hmm
to accomplish. But how did you celebrate after the finals, like with your family and
I think, what did I do? I actually don't know. I want to
Mhm.
say we went out to eat. I think we went out to eat.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just like chill because it was my last day, but I don't think it was the last day of the Olympics, if I'm
Okay. Yeah.
or like the track and field event. So I think like I love track. So I just wanted to continue watching and just like hung out with my friends that were there. But yeah, I kind of didn't have I am not like a big partier, so I didn't really go out in Paris after because my season wasn't ending.
Oh,
So it would be different if like my season was ending, maybe I'd go out and hang out in Paris. But I ended up staying and competing in some Diamond League meets. And that decision I had packed. My agents had called me like a week and a half, 2 weeks before I left for Paris, and they were like, "Hey, just like pack some Adidas uniforms, make sure you have all your stuff. Like, if you want to compete after, we'll get you into some meets. If you don't, just you can just go home and that's fine." Like it's no, there's like I don't know, you can benefit from competing, which I did, or they're like, you can just go home because you're tired. I mean, you've had a full collegiate season. It's August. Do you want to compete for another month or so? And then I had never really talked to Coach Holloway about it until right after the final. He was like, "So are you staying or leaving?" And I was like, "No, I'm gonna stay." So then I ended up staying and competing, and it was nice to get some of those Diamond League meets because it's different in the Diamond League because you don't have rounds, except we did in Celestia, which was a change, but it's not normal. So you don't normally have rounds in like these Diamond League meets. So you kind of just show up and run, which is, I mean, being in college, we have a prelim, we have a final, like so we're not just ready to go when we get there. So we can shake off any nerves or whatever. So it was good to get some of those out of the way while I was on such a high. So now when I'm at these meets, I like kind of know what to expect when it's like, all right, warm up as hard and as best as possible so you can get yourself ready just to go into one straight round and you're done.
yeah, that's good. How long were you in Paris then afterwards? Or
So I left, I think the closing ceremonies was like the 11th or something, 10th or 11th. And I left the day after and I went to London, which is where my agency is like based out of. And then we just stay at like a hotel on a college campus. And we train there and stuff like that. And we have a trainer out there, and our agents, for the most part, are located there. And there's like a group of us that was staying out there, and we would just train, and then we would go from like meet to meet. So we would take the Eurostar, which is the main train throughout Europe, and sometimes we would fly. It just would really depend. But yeah, so I competed in Lausanne, Switzerland, and then I went over to Silesia, Poland, and then where did I go next? I think I went to Zurich next.
Mhm.
And then I went to Bellinzona, which was a gold meet. So it wasn't maybe silver. I don't know, one of the two. So it wasn't a Diamond League meet. And then I went to the Diamond League final. So that was like I didn't get back to like September 15th.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I was over for like I didn't expect to be over for like 2 months, but I ended up being over for 2 months. Because even we had it scheduled so I'd fly back out of Belgium and Brussels because they thought I was gonna make the Diamond League final, but I didn't really know. I knew about the Diamond League. I didn't know what all entailed the Diamond League and like how you get into the finals. So you have to, I don't know if you know, but you have to place high enough at meet and score points. So it's like if you score first, you get 8 points, second, you get six, and so forth down to one. So you have to have like the top points, and maybe they'll like invite someone or two, but I just like had to do well at these meets, and I ended up placing enough at my last meet to make it in. So I was able to continue, but it was a super fun experience staying over there. It was definitely like a learning curve for sure, because that was the first time like I didn't have Coach Holloway at a meet. So that was definitely a big adjustment. I had my agents and I had some of my training partners that definitely helped. And I'd call Coach Holloway like before and after the race and during the warm up and stuff. But that was like the biggest adjustment I feel like being overseas is you just don't, and being pro in general, like you just don't always have your coach there, especially when you have a collegiate coach as your coach, because
Yep.
that's his main job. So I can't blame him for not being at all these meets. That's what really pays the bill. So I don't blame him for having to make that his priority.
Yeah, for sure. But wow, I mean that seems like you were just totally thrown into, okay, this is what the professional experience is like. You're gonna go through the
Hmm.
trials, the Olympics, and then immediately just like couple months of just
Hmm.
traveling. What was like the Diamond League final meet like? How
It
was
was fun. I mean, everything was so much fun. It was definitely an experience, all of it, because I didn't really know what the Diamond League. I knew what it was because obviously I watched it on TV, but I didn't know like the ins and outs and the behind the scenes. And it was just like a crazy experience just because everyone just seemed so ready to be at these meets. And I'm like, I don't even know where to go. Like, so there, a lot of like the people in my agency were definitely helping, and a lot of other athletes who were there kind of like knew I was young. So they were definitely like very helpful because I was just like confused. But yeah, even the Diamond League final, it was pretty cold there. But I think it was such a long season, and I was definitely tired by the time I got there, just because I think I had competed like, I don't know, like 20 or so races. Like it was just so many at that point. And I think I was just like tired by the time I got there. And even like we were all talking, just like in like the little like call room and stuff. We're like, we are so ready to be done. And it was funny, Jasmine Moore and I, we were just like, we were roommates. So we were just like, oh, we're jealous of the people who got to go home like the first day because they competed and we have to wait to go home to tomorrow. But of course, it was such a great experience. We're both like so thankful that we got to be there and compete. But it was it was a long season, and it was a hard last meet to like really stay like mentally in it because you're just like, I've been competing for like 9.5 months straight. So it was a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, especially for obviously people coming off of like their collegiate seasons. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
that's such a long season
Hmm.
already to begin with, on
Hmm.
top of adding starting your pro season. So, I mean, that's amazing. Um, and now you're in your first pro indoor season. So
Hmm.
you how much time kind of did you take like off or like in between those?
Um, I took 3 weeks of nothing,
Okay.
and then I went home for those 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I was like traveling a little bit with stuff that I had to do, and then I went home for like most of October. And then we did some stuff with our strength coach for like 3 weeks. Or no, we did 3 weeks, nothing, 3 weeks of like cardio stuff that our strength coach was sending us, that we could just do at home. So we didn't really have to be in Gainesville because I wasn't. And then um we did 3 weeks of like summer B training, but it was in October. But we're just so used to calling it summer B in college, we just kept it summer B. And then it was just like a kind of like a heavier strength training circuit, just trying to like build and get back for the season before fall training. And then we were in fall training. I think we were outside like November 18th. So it's way different than what I am used to because I'm used to being outside like September 18th. So it was just way different. It was good. It was a nice break. It was honestly like exactly what I felt I needed for my like body to like rest and recover from everything going on. And I was even like excited to get back out there because I mean I love competing and I love practicing and I love doing the hurdle. So it was nice to have a good break and take some space away, but getting back I was excited too.
Yeah, for sure. So you have already had just the two races under your belt, right? In November
Hmm.
and then the Millrose Games.
Hmm.
Nice finishes in both. That's amazing. And like, would you say kind of la you feel better equipped as like a pro now this season versus like everything that went on last summer after the Olympics and that first experience with like Diamond League and everything?
I'm definitely not seasoned, so it's definitely still an adjustment. But yeah, I feel good. I mean, I'm glad that I did, even though it was like hard to still be away from home and just being away from like America and then like doing all those meets back to back. And of course, like I was tired and whatever, but I'm really glad I did it. So when I come to these meets, I have some understanding of kind of like what goes on at these pro meets, and how kind of intense and how ready you really have to be in that first round. So I was glad I did it. I still feel like young and like a rookie. I mean, I guess I still am, but I don't know. I'm excited. I started off my season with my second fastest time ever. So, and right exactly where I ended the last year. So I'm excited about this season. We're all such fast athletes and we all never miss a chance to compete with each other. So it's really fun.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Um, and so you're off to Paris next.
Hmm.
What meet is this or
Yeah,
what?
so I fly into Paris and then we drive to a city called Louvain and we compete there. there's gonna be great talent there. We're gonna see some overseas talent, and then I think some of the girls in this last race and the race before that are also going to be there as well. So yeah, it's nice to see the same people. Nice to see some of the overseas girls to get a little bit of that overseas competition. And it'll be fun to go back overseas and compete. And then we'll be back here in Staten Island at Ocean Breeze for USA's.
Okay, yeah. So you're set on kind of doing world indoors or
Hmm.
okay, got it. Stuff like that.
Yes. Hmm.
Awesome. Um, that's so exciting.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with all of that.
Thank you.
The last thing that I wanted to ask you was kind of any advice that you would give to your younger self, kind of when you were, I don't know, battling injuries or just growing,
Hmm.
being where you are now. What would you say?
I would just say hold on to your faith and stay really determined. I feel like that really helped me through this last injury. Because it was like a big injury, and I feel like my faith and staying determined definitely were things that I really held on to and made me successful. So I feel like I wish I could have told myself with like the past injuries that were smaller, just like really hold on to my faith. I feel like I could have like stepped away from it a little bit because feel like in those moments you kind of get angry, like why did this like happen to me? Like I felt like I was on such a high, and then it was just like stripped away from me. I feel like I got like a little bit angry at God in those like scenarios. So I really tried to like keep to my faith, and it ended up working out.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for finding time to schedule
Thank you
this.
for having me. It was
Yes.
so much fun.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. This was so fun having Grace on here. If you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast over on YouTube. Follow at Athlete to Athlete Podcast on Instagram, also at Mackenzie Sullivan on Instagram. And I'm realizing that I forgot to tell Grace to give her socials a shout out. So I'm going to shout out her socials. Follow at Grace_Stark on Instagram to keep up with everything that Grace has going on. And thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye. You know what? I'm so busy. I gotta go. You're gonna come out while I do this, okay? I know. But I don't want any distractions.